Hey everyone, and welcome to my She-Hulk reading vlog. She-Hulk has officially started on Disney Plus, so what I'm going to be doing for this reading vlog is commenting on every single episode as I watch them, so be warned there will be spoilers throughout this, and also reading She-Hulk comics and telling you exactly what I think about these comics, which ones are my favourites and that kind of thing. So I'm going to start with telling you what I think about episode 1. I have just watched it, and then I'm going to go into what I'm going to be reading. I love how we got a condensed version of the origin story. It was slightly different than it was in the comics. Instead of Bruce just bleeding on Jennifer and it ending up in a wound that she has from a car accident, she is in this car accident still, but in the comics Bruce has to give her a full blood transfusion because he's the only one available who is a genetic match for her in the blood types and stuff, and that's how she hulks out. But in this one it's just a little bit of blood and it happens by accident. I really like that. It sort of really condensed it a bit. I'm also really interested to know why the Sicarians wanted to give a message to Bruce. I'm like, this is going to get interesting. I'm wondering if this is going to tie into Shang-Chi at all with the 10 rings and stuff like this. So very excited to see where that goes. It will eventually happen somewhere. Something will happen and we'll get that explanation. Very excited for that. But I also like that this actually filled in a couple of gaps for Bruce as well, in terms of what he was doing within the blip, how he became Professor Hulk, or Smart Hulk as he's calling him, and why he appeared human in Shang-Chi. So I'm really glad that that happened. We also got a bit of a mention of the Sokovia Accords as well, which is great because they haven't been mentioned since Infinity War, when General Ross basically ordered Rhodey to arrest like Steve, Natasha and Sam and Vision. So that was great to have that little bit of an explanation there, or at least just a little bit of a mention. I know that this show is going to go more into the Sokovia Accords because obviously this is a legal show and Jen is going to be representing superheroes and superpowered people and things like this, so we're going to get more of that. So I'm very excited for that in general. As for Jennifer herself, I already love her. I think she's absolutely brilliant. I loved her personality. I love how she became the Hulk and how she sort of learnt to control of that. I love the fact that she is like this self-assured, smart, powerful woman in her own right, and she's not afraid to call that out and say, look, I am a lawyer, this is what I want to do, I don't want to be a Hulk, I don't want to be a superhero, I just want to be a lawyer. And for her to really stick to her guns like that, I really liked as well that we got the opposite side of that and like the downside of being a woman in terms of like the sexist society we live in and things like this. I really liked that, and the subtle hints of it, especially with the lawyer that Jennifer interacts with. I really like that he sort of not exactly mansplained her, but he was very much like, let me take over, I know what I'm doing, and sort of implying she didn't. So I really like that like interaction with him and her. I also really liked seeing Jennifer and Nikki sort of interact with each other and that subtle, oh here we go again kind of thing with this. I also really liked as well seeing the sort of like realities of being a woman, catcalling and things like this, and Jennifer talking about how she has to control her anger every single day more than Bruce does in terms of like being a woman and existing as a woman and things like this. So I really like that. I also like that in the bar scene there was also like the fact that a whole bunch of women came to Jennifer's aid despite the fact they didn't know her, things like this. I really like that, and I just generally really like the tone of this show. I will say I did tear up on occasion because of the Tony and Steve mentions, specifically the Tony mentions when Jennifer's walking through the house in Mexico and she sees the Iron Man helmet and you get the sad slow version of the Avengers theme. Not gonna lie, I teared up. And then also seeing the BBTS carving into the bar, that also got me emotionally as well, and sort of seeing how Bruce does miss his friends like Tony and Steve really got to me in a lot of ways. So I really like that sort of like emotional bit where you still are having a laugh, but it also hits emotionally as well, while also joking about the fact that Captain America may have died a virgin. He did not die a virgin, as we now know from that end credit scene. But I really love that sort of conversation because that is the kind of conversation that loads of people would be having. Especially with the whole, that ass did not deserve to die a virgin. I love that bit so much. I love all of this. It was absolutely brilliant. I will say that I think the origin story was maybe slightly rushed and like that end bit as well in the court. But obviously this is only like half an hour long episode, so I can't really complain there, and I am just so excited to see where this one's going to go. I'm so excited to get to know Jennifer more and all of that good stuff. I'm just very, very excited. As for what I'm reading today, I'm actually not reading She-Hulk. I am going to be reading Planet Hulk, because this one I want to read before the end of the month, because this is one of my magical readathon prompts for the magical readathon Aurelium bit. This is my bones on the cover, and there are bones there, and I also meant to read this when Thor Ragnarok came out and I did not. So this is going to be the only solo Hulk comic I read this month, probably. I'll read like team-ups of Bruce and Jennifer if I can find any, but this is my only solo Hulk comic I'm going to be reading. And then after that, I'm going to be going through various different She-Hulk runs as well. I'm specifically going to be going for the Dan Slott one. I know that one's going to be my main focus first, because he has written more She-Hulk than anybody else. I think I'm going to go for the latest run as well, which is supposed to be a good jumping off point for people who are new to She-Hulk, and basically anything else I can get my hands on, and whatever I feel like reading, whichever one is calling to me. So what I'm going to do is make a start on this, and I'll be telling you what I think about it as I read it, and then we'll go from there. If I have time, I'll read a She-Hulk comic. I'm probably not going to have time today because it's already 11:30, but you never know. Either way, I'm going to start with Planet Hulk and then go on to She-Hulk, and I will tell you what I think about each of these comics as we go. So, that was a very long intro. Now it's time to get on with the reading for this reading vlog. Planet Hulk has now been finished, and I will say that this was a reasonably enjoyable read. I don't think it's going to go down in history as like one of my favourite event type things or big bind-ups, but it was still fun. I really like seeing like how Bruce grew as a character throughout this, and like the world of Sakaar, and seeing how different it was in Thor Ragnarok. I also liked meeting Korg and Mick and people like this as well, who are obviously in the MCU as well, and seeing like their comic counterparts and where they came from, that kind of thing. I did enjoy the world of Sakaar as well, in terms of it being like less lawless and more a dictatorship with a lot of problems and a lot of battles, things like this, and them having a lot of their own problems that Bruce has to try and solve as Hulk. I did also like exploring more of like Bruce's anger issues and things like this, which happens more towards the end of this one, and this actually then leads into World War Hulk, if I remember rightly, which I do not own. It's probably on Marvel Unlimited, but I don't really have time to read that at the moment. I may read it at the end of this reading vlog, I don't know. But either way, I will say that I was slightly confused throughout some of this bit, because I feel like the world building could have been a little bit better, or like the character work could have been a bit better with some of the other characters, like the more side characters, especially with characters like the Emperor and people like this. I feel like it could have been a little bit more sort of fleshed out in places, but apart from that, I did reasonably enjoy this, so I think I'm going to give it a 3.5 to 4 stars. And I should also mention that the artwork in here is absolutely brilliant as well. You've got artwork like this, and lots of like battle scenes that weren't too confusing to read, which was really nice, because I find that sometimes battle scenes can be very, very confusing in comics and mangas, so it was really nice to have that as a readable thing. In terms of whether you can read this without knowing Marvel Comics in general, I'd say probably, because while it does tie into the fact that the Avengers, the Fantastic Four, people like this, or specifically I should say the Illuminati, have sent Bruce away, and they've tried to send him onto a planet where there is no intelligent life, but he can still like roam, hunt, all the rest of it, so he's got enough food and things like this. That's really the only thing you really need to know, and to be honest, you don't really need to know further than the fact that they are a team of people who make the important decisions without really discussing it with anyone else, and they did not tell Bruce about this. They just went, well, he's in space, we're sending him that way to this planet, and then it goes wrong. So in that sense, I reckon you could read this without much further knowledge. I mean, there is mentions of species like the Brood and things like this, but it's pretty self-explanatory. So I'd say if you are wanting to get into Hulk comics and you enjoyed the idea of Gladiator Hulk from Ragnarok, and you want to know Korg and Mick and things like this a bit better, this is a pretty good one to go for, actually. And now that I've read that, I've got to get my blog post done, but quickly before I do that, I've suddenly realised that I obviously put on my She-Hulk t-shirt today, but then also I wear my glasses when we watch new Marvel things to make sure I don't miss anything, and my glasses have the Hulk on the side of them. So I went extra Hulk, and I didn't even realise I did that until I took my glasses off and went, wait a minute, these have Hulk on. So I was just like, okay then, I am hulking out everywhere. And also this week has been a bit of a mess, and I wanted to hulk out myself and become Jennifer Waters. So pretty good on all of that sort of Jennifer front, to be honest. But I'm going to get on with my blog post now, and then if I've got time, I'm going to start a She-Hulk run. But I don't know if I'm going to have time. I may do. I'll see how things go. Episode 2 of She-Hulk done, and before I talk about anything to do with the plot, can we talk about the newspaper bit? Because there's a moment in this episode where Jen is looking through like news articles, and on the side it says man was in a fight or something like this. I can't remember the exact wording of it because I've only seen it once, but it basically says man in fight in bar who fights with claws in his hands. That's Wolverine. That Wolverine is in the MCU. Wolverine. We didn't see him, so it's fine. But I'm like, oh my god, that was Wolverine. That was Wolverine. Now, I have very mixed feelings about this because Wolverine is one of my all-time favourite heroes. I love Wolverine. I've loved Wolverine since the X-Men first came out. Admittedly, he was not my favourite X-Men growing up. I did love Scott more, and I had a crush on Scott. But as I've gotten older, I've loved Wolverine more, and he means a lot to me personally in a lot of ways. Like, ever since I was a child, he's made me feel better about a lot of things about myself and things like this. So I love Wolverine. And I have a serious thing in terms of what I want from Wolverine. And for me, Wolverine is Hugh Jackman. And if Wolverine is not Hugh Jackman, it's Daphne Keane. Because I grew up with Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, obviously because he was the only one playing Wolverine throughout the movies, apart from obviously the flashback clip where it's Troye Sivan playing a kid Wolverine in Wolverine Origins. Apart from that, it's always been Hugh Jackman, in the live actions anyway, and for me that is who Wolverine is. Wolverine is Hugh Jackman. And I've always thought this ever since, like, the original movies came out. He is Wolverine to me, and he'll always be Wolverine to me. So if they cast another male actor to play Logan, I'm going to have trouble adjusting to that. Like, I'm sure whoever they get, if they do go down that route, they will do an amazing job. But for me, Wolverine, aka Logan, is Hugh Jackman, and I really don't like the idea of someone else taking over. I'm obviously going to have to get used to it. I mean, it could be like a misdirect and it turns out it's possibly like Daken, or we've possibly got Laura, aka Daphne Keane, from the Logan movie turning up and is in disguise somehow or something like this. Then yeah, okay, fair enough, fine, go for it. Or it could just be an Easter egg and they're going to sort of like go somewhere else with it, I don't know. But for me personally, Wolverine is Hugh Jackman and Daphne Keane, and I feel like the best way to handle it is to get Daphne Keane back and sort of pull her from the multiverse. And I've said this since the beginning, like since Fox was bought by Disney, since we knew the X-Men were turning up in the MCU and all the rest of it, I've always said Daphne Keane would be the best one to go in, and it like it's the one from the Logan movie and all the rest of it, and she's coming up and she's like coming into like the Xavier mansion and things like this, and is then the new Wolverine, because obviously she's young enough to carry the franchise and is talented enough to carry the franchise for like 10-15 years, sort of like how Deadpool says it with Negasonic, Teenage Warhead and Kamiko in Deadpool 2. And that's my kind of feeling on it, but at the same time I'm so excited because Wolverine, and obviously as well we saw Madripoor in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. They went to Madripoor, which is a big X-Men place, and they went past a bar which is where Wolverine used to be in the comics. So it's sort of like he's been hinted at a few times now, so I'm sort of like happy because I'm like, mutants, because obviously we've had the M word in Miss Marvel. We've seen Patrick Stewart back as Charles Xavier in the Illuminati in Multiverse of Madness, so that's great. But I'm also like, but it might not be Hugh or Daphne, so I'm sort of like stuck in the middle. Like, if they go down the route of using like Daken or someone like that, fair play, go for it. If you're going to go for one of the offshoots of the many Wolverine children, go for it. Just don't touch Hugh Jackman and Logan, and don't touch Laura Kinney and Daphne Keane, essentially. Now, onto the actual episode. I've talked 5 minutes about Wolverine. I need to stop on my love of Wolverine, but I ain't gonna stop. I love him. Again, I really like this episode. I really like where it's going. I really love this idea that Jen is sort of kind of not happy about being the She-Hulk, and she doesn't like the name of it, and it's sort of growing on her a bit, but she doesn't quite like it. She doesn't like that that's how she came out so publicly, and the fact as well that she doesn't want to be like a token superhero in her law firm. Like, I totally, like, really love that, and I love bringing back Emil Blonsky as well, aka Abomination. I'm really glad they've brought him back. I mean, admittedly, I'm going to put my hands up here and say I have not seen the 2 original Hulk movies, neither the Edward Norton one or the Eric Bana one. To me, the Hulk is Mark Ruffalo. There is no getting past that. Mark Ruffalo is the Hulk for me. So the Hulk, personally, in my sort of MCU timeline, starts at Avengers and goes forward from there. I do not pay attention to the previous movies. Like, I'm obviously going to have to be like, okay, fair enough, they did happen, but I'm just kind of ignoring them because they're not Mark Ruffalo, and I think Mark Ruffalo plays the Hulk perfectly. But I absolutely love the fact that they've actually, like, brought this all back in again, and they've got Blonsky back, and it's sort of like tying into like previous bits as well. And then also the Shang-Chi tie-in as well was brilliant in terms of him being part of like that fight club in Shang-Chi fighting against Wong. I'm really excited to see the justification for that, and B, how Jen's going to get around this. Obviously Wong's going to turn up, so she's probably going to be like, what the hell, to him, so I'm very excited for that. But I just generally really liked this episode. I really like that we got a few more bits of like fourth wall breaking. I did also enjoy seeing like Jennifer sort of getting used to being the Hulk, but also not enjoying being the Hulk kind of thing, or like She-Hulk, I should say. I did also enjoy her family dynamics as well. I especially liked her dad. Her dad was epic. And also, where the hell is Bruce going? He's on a Sicarian ship going into space, and I'm like, where the hell are you going? Because obviously Fury is in space, and we don't know where Fury is, and now Bruce is in space, and I'm like, where the hell are you going? Are we getting World War Hulk? Because, I mean, a lot of people are saying World War Hulk here, which I'm interested to see if that happens. I don't know, obviously, but I'm very excited to see what they're doing there. I mean, it would just be like Marvel to be like, oh yeah, we actually did buy Hulk back from Universal, so we can now use him. We're now doing World War Hulk. Or they're just being like, oh yeah, we did actually work it out with Universal. We're doing World War Hulk, or something like this. Especially after I've just read last week Planet Hulk. Very excited to see if that's going to happen. I don't know, but I'm intrigued to see where Bruce is going. My idea was that Bruce was actually going, like, was contacted by Sakaar in the previous episode because of Gore the God Butcher, because there is a deleted scene from Thor Love and Thunder where it turns out that the Grandmaster of Sakaar was killed by Gore the God Butcher. And obviously he is now going back to Sakaar, presumably because he's on the Sicarian ship, and that's the Sicarian messengers wanted him for something. So originally my idea was, what if the Grandmaster was asking Bruce to come to help him with Gore the God Butcher and to save him, but maybe we're now getting World War Hulk or something like this, because clearly he's going back to Sakaar. So I'm very excited to see how that works. If you're wondering why I keep on going a bit dark, it's because I'm using my laptop screen to like bounce more light off, and it keeps on turning off. But I'm very interested to see where this is going with Bruce, but also with Jennifer. I really like Jennifer as a character. I really like her fourth wall breaking. I like her sense of humour. I like how fun she is, but she's also dedicated to her job. Things like this. I'm just really excited to see where she's going to go from here and where the show itself is going. So now that I've watched the episode and spent 10 minutes talking about it, I am now going to start on some She-Hulk comics at last. So I think I'm going to start with Dan Slott's run because that is the one I own. I've got the first volume in that, which is Single Green Female. So I think I'm going to start there and go from there. So yeah, very excited to finally start some She-Hulk. I would also be reading Reign of X, but I'm like, no, behave yourself. You're not reading Reign of X today. You're going to read She-Hulk. And if you're going to read any other character for this vlog, it's going to be people like Daredevil who physically turn up. If they don't physically turn up, not reading it, because otherwise this reading vlog is going to be a mess. So and I'm just not going to get through my She-Hulk comics. So I'm going to start on She-Hulk. I'm going to start with Dan Slott, probably, and go from there. Either way, really like this episode. Wolverine's in the MCU. Very excited to see where Bruce is going to go. Very excited to see exactly what's going to happen with Jen later on as well, in terms of being a superhero attorney and things like this. And just generally, I really like the show. I really like Jennifer and everything else. I really like where this is going. I really like all the tie-ins and everything else. And I'm excited to see what's going to happen next. And now I'm going to go read some comics, and I will update you once I've read some of these comics. So I'm currently reading Dan Slott's run, and this has just happened. So Marvel Comics exists within Marvel Comics. That is brilliant, and the fact they're using it as a legal get around, and the fact that like all the heroes own their own comic, genius, absolutely genius. That is absolutely brilliant. It's saying they're actually called Marvel Comics. That is absolutely genius. And the fact they're actually using as well like actual comic book covers as well. I love it. I absolutely love it. I've just finished the first 2 volumes of Dan Slott's She-Hulk, and I will say that they're quite fun. That they are definitely not my favourite Dan Slott comic. That is still definitely Fantastic Four, and this does feel very much of its time. For context, this was written in 2004 in terms of the way She-Hulk is dressed and generally drawn and how she's acting. It's a little bit sexist, a little bit 2004 sexism, I will say, which is not my favourite thing in the world. But overall, I am reasonably enjoying this series so far. I do like all of this idea of like Jennifer becoming this lawyer to try and help superpowered people with their lawyer problems. That's quite fun, and also reflects what's happening in the show, which is great. Though in this one it's a bit more like she's being slightly more manipulated, though she is actually also in the TV show, but she's being manipulated in a different way in the TV show compared to the comics. But I still quite liked all of that. I did like seeing her interact with everybody as well, in terms of like the Avengers, specifically Jarvis, because she interacts with Jarvis a lot because she's living in Avengers Mansion at the beginning of this, and seeing like how Jennifer uses sort of She-Hulk as sort of like a front, I guess you could say. It's very much like she's got this barrier in front of her that is She-Hulk, that's who she portrays to the world. And she sort of says at one point that when she first got these powers, she said that anything Jennifer Waters couldn't handle, She-Hulk would. But it's sort of turned into her sort of basically always being She-Hulk and always being green until she's forced to become like human, I guess you could say. She turns back into her normal human form. And seeing like her being really uncomfortable with that was really interesting, and things like this. I will say that I do wish that the drawings weren't as boob focused, I guess you could say, in terms of her outfits. But overall, I am really like reasonably enjoying these, so I'm going to give these to 3.5 to 4 star. I think this is actually where the series was actually cancelled, and then it was brought back again a couple of years later by Dan Slott, and it kicked off where it ended. So I'm going to maybe focus on those ones now. But to be fair, I don't have that much time, so I may just try and read some She-Hulk Infinity comics instead and just sort of go through those. But overall, it's a good start to She-Hulk. In terms of whether I prefer it over Planet Hulk, I'd say they're on the same sort of level at the moment in terms of enjoyable, but I have problems. But yeah, let's get on with the Infinity comics, and I'll talk to you again in a minute. If you don't know what an Infinity comic, I should say it's specifically made for Marvel Unlimited, where you can literally just scroll through this way instead of having to flick through the pages. You scroll through and it's like a never-ending page kind of thing until you get to the end of the issue. It's basically made easier to read, essentially. So that's what Infinity comic is for anybody who doesn't know. And now we're actually going to go and read one. But before I do, I want to quickly show you how I've set this up, because I usually have my tablet on my lap and that was causing me headaches. So I'm going to quickly turn you around and I'll show you exactly how I'm putting my tablet up now, because I think it's quite fun. So how I'm doing this now is I've got this on a writing easel. Literally, this is a writing easel I got from Aldi that I was originally going to use this to like rest this on to draw on, but I also found that obviously having this on my lap, I was like looking downwards, which wasn't fun. So originally my laptop was also on my lap and this was in the middle, but frankly, I can fit both on here now, so I don't care, and this is just how I'm going for it. So I can flick between my laptop, where I've got my like Google Pictures up at the moment, so I can add these things to my blog post in a minute, and then also read here as well. And I think this is really useful, so I just thought I'd quickly show you that, because I think it's quite fun, and I've just discovered I can do this, and I really like this setup now. So maybe you can say that this is my sort of front to the world, so no one can get through to me through the barrier that is this table. But anyway, I really like this setting and this setup, so I thought I'd show you, and I will update you when I've read something else or next week, whatever happens first. Episode 3 of She-Hulk watched, and I loved this one. I loved how it was calling out sexism and like just men being assholes about the idea of women being superheroes and just men being sexist pigs. To be honest, the whole thing was just calling out sexism in many, many, many ways, and I loved that. I absolutely loved this. I loved like all of the jokes in there as well. I love that it took a hit at men who think they are like God's gift to the world kind of thing, that they could pull any woman. I loved that. I loved that it was calling out everybody who was doing the is woke culture gone mad kind of thing about like She-Hulk being a thing, and obviously like Black Widow, Captain Marvel, all the rest of it, it does all come under that umbrella. I loved how they called that out as well. I loved all of that kind of thing. Marvel definitely knew the kind of comments they were going to be getting when they announced this show, and then when they made it, absolutely brilliant that they did all of that and like put it all in. It felt very sort of true to life, but also very much like this would have been an in-world thing as well, so I really like that. I especially love the don't forget whose show this actually is. I loved that because obviously everyone is really sort of focusing on the cameos, especially like Wong and Daredevil. Everyone is really, really excited for them. I am too, but this is still Jennifer's show. And I feel like some people forget that because they're like, oh my god, Daredevil's coming. And obviously Daredevil coming along like for the first time since Spider-Man is a huge, huge thing. And to see him again is really, really exciting because he's Daredevil. But this is still like Jennifer's show. This is still She-Hulk. So I'm really glad that Jennifer called that out. I also really like the Deadpool-esque moment where she goes, oh, connecting the A and the B plot. Smart. And then like leans backwards again. That was absolutely brilliant. I loved that. Blonsky was a great bit of this as well. I'm excited to see if there's anything more there, or if we're going to move on to Titania now and whoever the boss is for the people who attacked Jen and want her blood or whatever. So that's exciting, but I'm still really like all the Abomination stuff and the Wong stuff as well. I love Wong, and I love the confirmation that Wong is just as much of a chaotic disaster as Steven when he's left to his own devices. It's like Wong grows up when he's around Steven because Steven is an idiot with one brain cell and Wong has to protect that brain cell, and it's like when Steven is around the Avengers he has to have the brain cell and has to be the adult because Wong's usually like, I am having no part in this, I have to protect the Sanctum or whatever. And then when Wong's left by himself he has no brain cell, so it's like, does that mean Steven has the brain cell at that point? That's what I want to know. I love the fact that the brain cell and the maturity and the adult has to bounce between Wong and Steven. I am loving that. I'm just loving seeing like more of this side to Wong, because Wong in the comics is very sort of one-dimensional, and it is still like a racist character, to be honest, because he is still very much Steven's manservant and trainer and things like this, but he doesn't really have that much agency about him. He doesn't really have that much of a character and things like this. They are giving him more of a character because he's now like a teacher and things at the Strange Academy and bits like this, but he's still very much like a subservient character. So I really like in the MCU they've made him Sorcerer Supreme. They've given him more of a personality, more of like agency, more storylines. I love as well just seeing him again because obviously we last saw him in Shang-Chi. Like, obviously we saw him in Multiverse of Madness, but like by himself, the last time we saw him was with Shang-Chi and Katie doing karaoke, which was just great. So it was nice to see Wong again and get more of an explanation as to the Fight Club stuff. But generally, I really love this episode. I love the whole like Megan Thee Stallion thing as well. That was very funny. And everything else, I never thought I'd see like a superhero twerking, so that was new, but I just generally had a really good time watching this show. I'm still loving it, and yeah, I just generally really love it, and I cannot wait for the next episode. The next episode is supposed to possibly have like the director said that it's one of the best team ups ever, so I'm excited to see what that team up is going to be. I'm slightly cautious because obviously we obviously know from experience with WandaVision where Paul Bettany was like, oh, I'm working with someone I've never worked with before but always wanted to. We all got very excited, going through multiple different ideas and everything else, and it turned out to be himself. So I'm just worried that the director is trolling us, but we'll see. But overall, I'm really excited for the next episode, and I'm really loving this series. For now though, I am going to be carrying on with the Dan Slott stuff. I'm going to see if I can possibly finish it, or at least make headway with it, maybe finish another 2-3 volumes today. And then I've also got to write my part 1 of the Easter eggs blog post, because I usually do one at like the midpoint or something, or every 3 episodes when it's a 9-episode series. We're on episode 3, so I need to do that. I'm just waiting for a couple of hours so I can sort of like process everything, and then I can go through the show again and figure out where all of the different Easter eggs are for this episode. I've got a list for the first 2, I just need to finish that off for episode 3, and then I can write the blog post. But for now, I'm going to read some She-Hulk, because I find that helps, because also this is the comic the show is based on, so I may pick up something else while reading the comic, and that's my excuse and I'm sticking with it. So I'm going to go read some more of that, and then I'll update you when I have read some more and I've got something to comment on. So I'll see you in a second. So I'm just going to push that back a bit. There we go. Now we're not so close. Anyway, I've just finished issue 8, I want to say. Was it issue 8? Give me a second. Issue 7 of the 2005 She-Hulk run. And first of all, massive trigger warnings in this for sexual assault and sexual assault cases and sexual manipulation, things like this. And this is actually dealing with Star Fox, who is the character we see at the end of the Eternals, played by Harry Styles. And Star Fox is really skeezy in this one. He is awful, because it turns out he has been emotionally manipulating people to sleep with him, because that's his power. He's got some level of like emotional manipulation powers, and he can basically make people fall in love with each other, fall in love with him, and basically do whatever the hell he wants them to do, which involves sleeping with him quite a lot of the time. And this issue is just entirely based around that, and the fact that he's also doing it to Jennifer, and she finds out in the end and kicks his arse. And we've now sort of had him escape from custody and things like this, so I'm just wondering how this is all gonna go, and like if it's gonna carry on, because the next issue is all about Civil War. So I'm like, is this gonna continue? I really hope it does, because it's such an important topic, and I do think while it's important that it was brought up, I do wish that this volume had been written by a woman. I, to be honest, wish that a lot of this had been written by a woman, because even though it was written in 2005, it's clearly written by a man, and yes, it was a man of that time, but it still feels a little bit sexist. I will say that Dan Slott works better now on the Fantastic Four, as far as I remember from the first like 6 volumes that I've read. But this one I think was a very important one to talk about, and especially considering we're talking like a She-Hulk comic and it's a female fronted one, things like this. But I do think it would have been done better from like a female writer. Not to say that men cannot be assaulted like that, they definitely can. We know that they can. I'm not denying that in any way, shape or form. It's just the fact that I'm saying this because this is written from Jennifer's perspective, and also the perspective of the victim and things like this, who were female. So in that sense, I do wish it had been written by a woman, but overall it was done pretty well. It was quite triggering. I can see how it could be triggering anyway, but it was pretty well done, and I'm just hoping that that isn't now left in favour of Civil War, but we'll see. We will definitely see. So I've just watched episode 4 of She-Hulk, and I will say I quite like this one. I will say though that I'm kind of like, when are we going to get to Titania? But considering the ending of this one, I think we are now getting into Titania and all the rest of it. But I did love the exploration of Jen's dating life and being Jen versus She-Hulk, and how like those two different things sort of like really juxtapose in terms of when she's dating people, and the fact that men are still trash, still loving all of that. And Wong and Madison, they were brilliant. I absolutely loved Wong and Madison's entire thing. I love Wong anyway. As Jen says, everyone loves Wong, and they do. It's rightful for him to be one of the fan favourite characters. He's amazing, and I love how chaotic he is. But back to Jen, because this is Jen's show. I really like seeing her like dating and all the rest of it. I love still that juxtaposition between Jennifer and She-Hulk and how she's dealing with both of them and what it means to be a superhero lawyer. Her fourth wall breaks are still absolutely brilliant. I love her fourth wall breaks. I love generally fourth wall breaks, but I love how very much the writers have predicted what the internet is going to do in reaction to each episode of She-Hulk, and they've really written it in. That was really, really clever. I still love her relationship with Nikki as well. I think all of that is brilliant, and I also just generally really love seeing Jennifer's various shenanigans as being a superhero lawyer, and her dating and all the rest of it is very much like the Dan Slott She-Hulk stuff that I am currently reading. And speaking of, I'm now going to start the next volume I need to read, which I think is volume 5, and I may see if I can possibly try to finish the series today. I think I'm going to try and finish the series today. I don't know. I'm thinking that's what I'm going to do, but I'll see how far I get. Either way, I will be reading more of Dan Slott stuff, and hopefully eventually I will be able to move on to another series as well, because I underestimated just how long this series was. And actually, quickly before I actually go into that, I should say that we did get more from Star Fox, aka Eros, and Eros was put on trial and everything else, and we did get more of a follow-up to it in the comics I read last week. I forgot to mention that, but it didn't work as well for me in that sense, because I didn't feel like Eros got a proper like punishment. But overall, I'm glad it was addressed, and I do like the fact that Jen did find out what happened and what he did to her, and John Jameson, who's J. Jonah Jameson's son, and stuff like this. But I do feel like he needed more than just Jennifer giving him a bit of a beating up because of what he did to her. I think he needed jail time. He definitely needed jail time. So I'm currently on issue like 14, I think it is. Maybe. No, I'm further than that, about issue 17, about that anyway. And first of all, a couple of things. In the previous issue, She-Hulk teamed up with Wolverine, which was great, but for some reason Jennifer's wandering around the entire time in basically her underwear, and I'm like, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? And then also when she's getting dressed into her uniform for S.H.I.E.L.D., you see 2 panels dedicated to her zipping up her costume with full boob shots, and I'm like, why are we doing this? Completely and utterly unnecessary, not here for it. But on a better note, we do have this moment here where they have rewritten the lyrics to Ghostbusters to Hulkbusters, which is a post-Civil War team that have teamed up together to basically hunt down all of Hulk's previous villains, because while Hulk is in space in the Planet Hulk run, they need someone to round up all of the various different like villains of Hulk, like Abomination, people like this, and they are now a Hulk busting team, and She-Hulk is part of it because she signed the Sokovia Accords, or I should say the Mutant Registration Act, but it's basically the Sokovia Accords of the comics, and Jen is now part of this, and that's all quite fun. I quite like the rewrite of Ghostbusters, but I will say that this has taken a little bit of a sexist turn, which I'm not all too pleased about for obvious reasons, because I'm not here for sexism essentially, but it was 2005, so I can kind of sort of get it and maybe overlook it a little bit, but at the same time, not here for the sexism whatsoever. I'm now up to issue 21, and I quite like this idea that like Jen's now got these nanobots in her, so she now can't transform into the She-Hulk, and she's dealing with that as well as like the fallout of Civil War and Planet Hulk as well. I do need to read World War Hulk because this tied into it, but I am saving that now in case there is an announcement. I am filming this, by the way, on the 8th of September, and in 2 days it's D23, so we may be getting some more like film announcements there, and it may be World War Hulk. I do think we are getting that kind of thing after what's been happening in previous She-Hulk episodes. I don't know, but yeah, so in that sense, quite enjoying it, and seeing like everything to do with the Magistrati and Zix, who was the temporary leader of GLK&H. I will say though that I was not fond of the helicarrier fight where Jen has just slept with Tony and is now basically fighting in her underwear because she doesn't have anything else. And it's like, yeah you do. You literally had your suit, which you would have had to have taken off to sleep with Tony, and I guess she would have taken it off in the bedroom before they got down to business. So it would have been on the floor. So it would have taken her 2 seconds to put her suit back on, but instead she was just running around in her underwear for the entire fight. And I'm just like, why? Like, why? Like, I'm not shaming her for sleeping with people, that's her prerogative. She likes sleeping with people, that is fair enough. I will say that in a court case, it comes across slightly slut-shamey, which was not fun. But it was just like, why is Jen in her underwear? Why are we doing this to ourselves? Can we not with the sexism, please? So this series is going a little bit downhill in my estimations because of the sexism, but I am going to complete it because this is what the show is based off of, and I do reasonably enjoy it. But what I will say though is that it is very 2005. I'm still reading the same series, but we've moved on from Dan Slott writing it to Peter David, and it's decidedly less sexist now, though I'm only a couple of issues in, so I'm not holding out that much hope for it to stay as, like, not sexist, I guess. But Jennifer is now a bounty hunter, which is really fun, and she's just been in court, and Tony's just turned up, and this has just happened. I love that they just name dropped RDJ. I love it when they do that in Marvel Comics, where they actually say, oh, like, mention something to do with that specific character's actor and things like this. I find those fourth wall breaks brilliant, and this one was just top notch. I've been searching for where this turns up for years now. So happy to finally have this bit, and I know where it is. Brilliant. So I've now just finished episode 5 of She-Hulk, and I really like this one. I really like the introduction to Titania. I think she's going to be a very interesting villain, as well as sort of like a sort of satire of sort of some influences, things like this. I think that's going to be a really good time and really good fun. I'm also really liking, like, Pug again. He's just a great character to see, and just finding out how superheroes get all their costumes is great, because obviously for Sam's Captain America costume, we know he's got it from Wakanda. Thor's is obviously Asgardian, Tony makes his, Stephen obviously gets his from Kamar-Taj, but it's everybody else. I'm so glad that we now know this. I also love that we're sort of starting to get, like, Jen's sort of insecurities about being Jen and being maybe more confident as She-Hulk and things like this. I always love that sort of exploration of that, I guess you could say. I'm also really liking just everything, essentially. I'm really liking everything about this. I find this episode very funny as well, and just generally a really good time. And also Matt's helmet at the end there. I'm so excited to see Matt. I'm so excited to see Matt. I know this is Jen's show and I am loving everything to do with Jen, but I'm also just, I'm a big fan of Jennifer Walters, so I'm just very excited to see Jen. To be honest, I'm just incredibly excited to see Jen. I'm so excited. I cannot wait. And I'm saying that I'm so excited to see Matt, not Jen. I'm seeing Jen. I'm excited to see Matt and see where he's turning up and why he's turning up, because Jen's on the other side of the country and Matt micromanages like a 20-block radius of Hell's Kitchen, and that's it. So he's gone a long way out of his comfort zone, so I'm excited to see exactly why he's in LA, but I'm very excited to just see him. I'm very excited to see him. And now it's actually time to get on and read some more, so I think I'm either going to go for Charles Soule today or Mariko Tamaki. I'm thinking Charles Soule because I've been saying that all week, so I think I'm going to go with Charles Soule, and then next week Mariko Tamaki. Actually, I think Mariko Tamaki's stuff is first, so I may start with that and then go to Charles Soule. Either way. More She-Hulk, I will tell you what I think about it when I've read some. So I'm on volume 2 now, I think, of the Charles Soule stuff, and this is quite interesting because Jen is creating her own law firm, things like this, because she's essentially quit the one that she was at because they're like, oh yeah, we're not giving you your bonus because you're not bringing in enough clients, because we essentially hired you because you know super people, essentially, which is, you know, arsehole move from then. Naturally, it was all men, because of course it was. So she's now made her own one. She's been dealing with the son of Doctor Doom, things like this. All of this is really interesting, but I'm finding one thing distracting, and that is the artwork, specifically the faces. It doesn't look too bad here, but if I go backwards a bit, see, the artwork is not my favourite. And I mean, most of it is fine, it's just She-Hulk's face. There's something about it that's just not working for me at the moment, so it's kind of pulling me out of the story. Like, the rest of it is fine, it's just like how her face is drawn and how everything else is drawn. It's a little bit rough, shall we say. The artwork is not doing it for me. I definitely prefer the Dan Slott artwork, but apart from that, this is quite fun. I've now finished the Charles Soule run, and I will say I feel like this one was maybe a little bit rushed, but that could just be because I'm comparing it to the Dan Slott run, which was like 38 issues long, and this one's only 12, so obviously it's shorter, but overall it wasn't too bad. It was not my favourite in the world. I mean, the artwork was very distracting in a lot of cases, because I was just a bit like, about the artwork, the faces and stuff just didn't really work for me. I will say that the artwork is less sexist, which is nice. Like, She-Hulk and everybody is less sexistly drawn, so that's good. But overall, like, how the faces and everything were just didn't really work for me. But the storyline did work pretty well. I will say I enjoyed the Captain America section the most, where someone is suing Captain America for wrongful death back in the 40s before he became Captain America. So that was an interesting bit, especially seeing like Jennifer work against Matt Murdock, because Matt was like dealing with the other side, that kind of thing. That was all very interesting, very, very fun. So I enjoyed that. I generally enjoyed seeing Jennifer interact with Matt as well, considering as well that after this episode that I've just seen today, episode 5, we've had a hint at Matt because we've seen his helmet in the hat box, so that was really exciting. So it was really nice to just see Jennifer with somebody else and like see her interacting with another lawyer and doing mostly lawyer stuff. But at the same time, I am sitting there going, where are the fourth wall breaks? Because both of the series I've read now have not had any fourth wall breaks, so I'm gonna have to do some more research to find the ones specifically where there are fourth wall breaks, because I'm missing those quite a lot. I really want to see the fourth wall breaks, so that is going to be my mission, to find those for next week, and then I can start reading those and get some fourth wall breakage stuff like this. But so I think that's going to be my job over the next week, is to essentially find the ones where there is fourth wall breakage, because I want fourth wall breakage at this point. So I'm going to do that and start a new set of comics next week after I've seen the next episode. But I think overall I'm going to give the Charles Soule run 3.5 stars, because while it was fun, it didn't work as well for me as the Dan Slott run, and the artwork also did not do it for me. But it is still a pretty good run if you're looking for like some She-Hulk comics where she's teaming up with a bunch of people, where she's interacting with like Matt Murdock, Captain America and Patsy Walker. Definitely give this one a go, because I do think it is a good one. It's just not currently my favourite. Episode 6 done, and I really, really like this one. I really liked being out of the plot a little bit more and going into like the wedding episode and it being the inconvenient time, because weddings always are. I really love that line. I loved exploring more of like Jennifer's friends and things like this, and she definitely needs new friends after that bride. Definitely needs new friends. I'm definitely saying that now. But I really liked all of that stuff. I really liked seeing Jen deal with the fact that some people want her as just Jen and not as She-Hulk, and like navigating all of that kind of stuff. And I also really loved everything to do with Mallory and Nikki as well, with Mr. Immortal in the office as well. I felt like watching those two tear into him was absolutely hilarious. I love that moment, and seeing like all of these other people as well like tearing into him, like his exes tearing into him, that was also great fun. And I love that this show is always like basically providing commentary on what it's like to be a woman, and stuff like this, and like how misogynistic men can be and things like this. I really like that. And everything to do with Intelligentsia as a website as well. I like that it was called the Crying Man Baby website, which was very funny to me. And also, did the writers just go on Reddit and just see the worst of the posts and just clicked copy paste over onto Intelligentsia? Because I feel like they did, because you could literally find those results on like Reddit, 4chan, places like this so easily. It was very sort of like real to see that like kill She-Hulk and all the rest of it on there. Generally I really like this one. I really like that we're getting more of like an overarching villain here as well, which is very interesting because we're on episode 6, we've only got 3 episodes left and we're now getting into like a proper villain, I guess you could say. But I kind of like the fact that this show's been more sort of like, not exactly a, it's been a sitcom and we're now getting into like the more superhero elements of it, which is great fun. So I'm really excited to see like the actual villain of this and seeing She-Hulk be proper superpowered, superhuman kind of thing. I'm not disappointed we didn't see Matt though. I'm not disappointed that we didn't see Matt because, I mean, like, this is She-Hulk's show, you know, and I know Matt's only going to be in like 1 episode and that's absolutely fine. I'm really excited to see Matt, but I'm not like disappointed that he's not here yet, you know. I mean, I love Matt. I love Daredevil. I literally was like so excited when I saw him in Spider-Man No Way Home, even though I knew he was coming because of all the rumours. And I was still shocked to see him. I was still really pleased to see him. I'm like really excited to see him in She-Hulk. I was really excited when I saw the trailer with him in, things like this, and I have missed him a lot since I last saw him when Series 3 of Daredevil came out. That was the last time I watched it. I watched it on the day it was released and I admittedly haven't watched it since. For no other reason further than I apparently have no self-discipline with actually watching the shows I want to watch. Instead I just rewatch like QI reruns. I really need to get on that, but we'll probably end up watching Daredevil actually after we've finished She-Hulk. I don't know. It depends on whether this Matt is our Matt from the Netflix universe or if this is a MCU version and he's a variant. It's all going to depend on that. But I'll probably watch it anyway when I get 5 minutes. But either way, I'm still really excited to see Matt, but I'm not angry that we got the tease last week but he's not here yet, because I mean, I'm quite happy to wait for him because I know it's going to be worth it, and I also am just really liking seeing She-Hulk as a character. I don't feel like she needs like a male character there to like draw interest into this TV show. I'm quite happy like watching her kick ass as a lawyer and as a human being and just generally being Jen, you know. So I'm not that bothered about it. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm very excited to see him, but I'm not like overly mad like some people are that he wasn't in this episode. Because I mean, I think he's in the finale and that's fine. That's absolutely fine. I'm very excited and very here for that, quite frankly. But either way, so like happy with this episode. I really like the wedding elements of it. Jen needs new friends. I love Nikki and Mallory as a team up now. I hope Jen gets to be a part of that and being like a badass lawyer trio. Here for that 100%. I'm very excited to see Matt as well. Very excited to find out more about what Intelligentsia want, and just generally really enjoying that this one's got a lot of social commentary on like misogyny on the internet and things like this. So that is my thoughts. I'm now going to read some more comics and write 2 blog posts, one about Intelligentsia and the other one on the Easter eggs of the last 3 episodes, because I generally do my Easter egg episode, like Easter egg blog posts once every 3 episodes, just because that's like a manageable number. And I will report back to you when I've read something, and hopefully I'll be reading something where Jen actually breaks the 4th wall, because she didn't last week in the Charles Soule stuff and didn't in Dan Slott. So I'm just like, where's the 4th wall break? So I'm hopefully going to find that this week as well and get to some 4th wall breaking She-Hulk. But we'll see what I read of Shulky once I've written my blog posts, or at least started my blog posts. Yeah, so that's my thoughts on everything so far. I'll update you again when I've read something. So I've now just read the Cosmic something or other, and then also the She-Hulks, which is a 2009-2010 set of comics, which actually ties into World War Hulk, which I admittedly haven't read, but I kept up with this pretty well. I did enjoy the Cosmic one because we're dealing with Jennifer actually hanging out and running around with her Lady Liberators, which she was with in one of her other comics, along with the female versions or the female characters who are on the Guardians of the Galaxy team. So we are dealing with Gamora and also Mantis and someone else whose name's completely escaped me at this point, but I quite enjoyed that one. And then I went on to the She-Hulks, which is where Jennifer is teaming up with Hulk's daughter from the 23rd century. Comics are weird. Just go with it. she's a Hulk, her name is Lyra, and seeing them try and take down the Intelligentsia, which is obviously the new villain of She-Hulk, the TV series. So that was great fun to see them try to take them all down, and seeing Jen sort of interact with another female Hulk kind of thing, and trying to take on that sort of carer role, that kind of thing. I will say though that the artwork was still pretty good, but not my favourite points, because sometimes it was just edging a little bit on like sexualized, so you could tell that it was drawn by a man, so that wasn't my favourite thing in the world. But overall it was still quite fun, so I'm going to give each of them 3.5 to 4 stars essentially. And now I'm going to find something where She-Hulk breaks the fourth wall, because I haven't got anything with that right now, and it is driving me nuts, because I just want to read She-Hulk breaking the fourth wall like she does in the show. I haven't read any of her breaking the fourth wall. I just finished episode 8 and Matt Murdock turned up. This was the best episode. Like, I love Jen as a character by herself. I love her. Seriously, I love her. There's nothing like I'm saying that I don't love her episodes by herself, but I am such a Daredevil fan. I have loved the character of Daredevil since the Ben Affleck movie, which I know was not good. It was definitely not good, but I was obsessed with that one and the Elektra movie when I was a kid. So I have loved Daredevil since then, and I've loved Charlie Cox's Daredevil. He is the perfect Daredevil, and to see him back again, even though I knew he was coming, I was just so excited and so happy to see him, and it did not disappoint. Like, I love seeing this slightly more like lighter side to him. I really enjoyed that. I really like seeing him and Jen interact. I love that like flirting, but also Matt sort of basically saying that she can be a hero and also a lawyer at the same time, like he does, and like helping people outside of the law and things like this. I really like that. I loved the fact that he did the walk of shame afterwards barefoot. That was brilliant at the end. I loved that. I just loved this. I absolutely loved this episode. It was so funny. The Frogman stuff was just hilarious in terms of idiot men. Again, I love it when they really go into idiot men. That ending with Intelligentsia, I'm like, oh, that was a low blow. Like, you could see it was coming, but it was still like, oh, they actually went there. They actually went there and exposed like her dating history and everything on her phone, and basically slut shamed her. And now like Jen's gonna be in trouble because she got angry despite the fact that she was rightfully angry. Things like this. Oh, I'm so excited for the season finale next week. I'm so excited, but I absolutely love this episode. It was just brilliant. I loved it. In terms of who I think Hulk King is, I don't think it's going to be the creepy guy who was flirting with Jen. I don't think it's him, because he's too like perfect for that role. I guess you could say he's too perfect to be like that person. Not in the sense that he's a perfect character or anything like this, but he's too easy in terms of being that villain reveal. And I also don't think he's that clever. I don't think he's clever enough for that, but at the same time, he could be. I don't know, but they've sort of lined him up to have this obsession with Jen this whole way through, and I'm like, I don't think it's him. It could be him, but I'm like unsure on that. But apart from that, I don't really know who it could be, to be fair. So I'm really excited to see who is actually behind Intelligentsia and things like this, and also just hopefully to see Jen really kick ass next week and everything else, and really sort of like become that She-Hulk. And well, she is the She-Hulk, but also to deal with like more of the stuff that Bruce deals with being seen as like dangerous and all the rest of it. I'm also thinking that next week as well, in the finale, we're probably going to see more of people viewing Jen as like dangerous after she's basically hulked out at this thing. And I wouldn't actually end up being surprised if she ends up leaving GLK and H at the end of this and setting up her own law firm, because obviously that's what Matt's done, and she does do it in the comics at one point as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. I'd quite like to see that, to be fair, as well, because then it's Jen doing things on her own terms, and we've already seen that a few times she has been uncomfortable with like the client she's dealing with and things like this. So I think that'll be quite fun as well. But I am so happy with this episode. It was definitely one of my favourites. I knew it was going to be one of my favourites, and I'm so glad I watched it. I'm so happy and so glad that it's finally here because it was just the best episode. As for what I'm going to be reading today, I've already actually ironically read the Charles Soule stuff, which is where Matt and Jen team up. I should have saved that. I definitely should have saved that for this week, but never mind. Instead, I think I'm going to read some Daredevil. Because I've only got like 3 or 4 different bits of She-Hulk stuff that I can read now that are like solo stuff. So I'm going to save that for next week for the finale, and instead I think I'm going to read some Matt Murdock today because I can't help it. I planned this. I did plan that I was going to read Daredevil at some point this month, and I think I'm going to do it. I'm going to finally read some Daredevil, and I'm so excited. And I will obviously tell you what I think when I've read some Daredevil. I really like that episode, and I'm so glad Matt's back. I'm so glad that Matt is back. It's so nice to see him. I've missed him so much. I'm so glad he's here. Matt's back. I'm so happy. I've got to calm down, write my blog post about the two of them like teaming up, and then I'm going to go read some comics, and I'll update you when I've read some comics, because otherwise this is just going to descend into me fangirling about Matt Murdock, and this is not what this vlog is about. I will save that for when Daredevil Born Again comes out in like 2 years time. That is when I'll freak out about Daredevil. This is about Jen, but I'm gonna take a quick detour into Daredevil this week just because I have to. It's Matt Murdock. But this is Jen's vlog. This is definitely Jen's vlog. I'm going to shut up now because this is not the point of the video. I'm talking about mostly Jen, but we're detouring into Matt this week. But essentially, Too Long Didn't Read. I really love this episode, and I don't know who the villain's going to be. I've got an idea about it, but I think it's too easy of a villain reveal. I don't know. But I really like this episode. I really like this episode, and I'm really glad Matt's back, and I kind of hope that he and Jen team up again some more because they were great fun. So I went with Daredevil Yellow, which is essentially a 2001 sort of reimagining kind of thing, origin story of Daredevil, where essentially Matt is writing a letter to Karen talking about their relationship and everything as he is grieving because Bullseye in a previous run has killed her. So she was fridged, unfortunately, which is not the greatest thing in the world, but this wasn't too bad as a comic. Obviously there was the sexist nature of it in terms of the woman getting fridged, and also the fact that 2 men were just sort of ended up nearly fighting over the same woman without actually asking what she wanted, which is, you know, not exactly the best thing in the world. I will say that this comic did come out in 2001, so it's 21 years old now, so I can sort of say that was 2001 sexist kind of thing, and this was sort of like a flashback kind of thing in the sense that I think it was sort of more based in like the 80s kind of thing, so it may have been reflecting that kind of sexism then as well. But overall it was fun. I will say there is a bit of fat phobia in there, and there is a bit of ableism as well, but the ableism at the very least is addressed because it's done by bad guys, and then Matt beats the living hell out of them and says that Helen Keller jokes, which is the ableist jokes they were making towards Matt, they were making sort of like Helen Keller jokes because she was blind and Matt is also blind, so they're making those jokes, and Matt said that he didn't like those and then beat the living daylights out of people, which is obviously not the way you should deal with ableists, but it's the way Matt deals with ableists. And everyone he doesn't like, to be fair. But overall it wasn't too bad. I did enjoy the sort of roundup of Matt's origin story and it being framed around his dad and things like this as well, because obviously a lot of what he does is based on his father and how much he looked up to his father and the way his father raised him, things like this. So that was fun. But like I said, it did have its problematic element, and the art style was not entirely my favourite. It was interesting, but it wasn't my absolute favourite art style in the world, but it was still quite pretty, so I think I'm going to give this one 3.5 stars. I've knocked it down simply because of that problematic element and the artwork, but apart from that it was still a good run. Now I'm thinking I'm going to start the Charles Soule section. I'm not going to finish it today. I may try and finish it up like throughout the rest of the year or what. I'm just going to give it a bit of a try for the moment because I've tried Charles Soule's work with She-Hulk, so it makes sense to try Charles Soule Daredevil work because he wrote the She-Hulk Daredevil team up bit in the She-Hulk run, so I'm going to give his work a go now as well. See if it's a bit more updated, a little bit less sexist, and maybe a little bit more fun in general. So that's going to be my next one. I'm very excited. So I'm currently in the middle of the Charles Soule run, and there's one thing I want to talk about quickly in terms of the artwork. I wanted to talk about this artwork specifically and these last few pages, because this is exactly how it's drawn whenever Matt is using his powers, essentially. So he's sort of using his echolocation, as Jen called it, and I really like this. I will say it's slightly eye-melting in terms of the colour palette, things like this, but I still really like how this is looking and how we're sort of getting like the echolocation like circles and stuff like this throughout it, things like this. I think that's all really cool and really fun, and I thought I'd quickly show you it. So I've now read the first two in the Daredevil by Charles Soule, which is volume 1 Back in Black and then volume 2 Supersonic, and I will say I did quite enjoy these ones. I like the more like edgy nature to it. It was definitely less sexist than before, which was really nice as well, probably because this was written around 2015 through 2018, so it was a lot more sort of like modern and things like this, and we're a lot better on being like politically correct, things like this, so that was enjoyable. But I also really enjoyed like the colour palette, because outside of those shots I just showed you, most of it is like black, white and red, and sort of like deeper tones and darker tones. I really like that as well with this one. I generally really like this. I really like seeing more of like Matt being a bit edgy, things like this, and broody. I do like a broody, edgy Matt, I will say. I do love that kind of part of him. I do like it when he's a bit more playful, things like this as well, but Daredevil's kind of known for being that edgy, broody kind of guy, so I really like that element of it. I really liked as well seeing Matt trying to be a lawyer again and trying to deal with everything that's happened in the past. I will say I haven't read that bit yet, but seeing as this was a bit of a relaunch, a new entry point for people, it wasn't too bad to read without having that prior knowledge. All I really had to know is the fact that Matt was like open in who he was beforehand, and a lot of people knew Matt Murdock was Daredevil, but then he changed that with the help of the spell, and now no one apart from Foggy knows that Matt Murdock is Daredevil, and we're sort of getting a few of the consequences of that in terms of you've got people like Elektra not knowing, Spider-Man doesn't know, generally nobody knows, which makes Matt's life, that was quite difficult to say instead of saying life to Matt, or Matt's life more difficult, because it means that nobody really knows who he is, which makes it difficult for like Spider-Man to trust him, because he's like, there's a hole in like our relationship here and I can't figure out what it is, which is ironic after Spider-Man No Way Home, to say the least. But I did really like that. I liked seeing him interact with these people. I did also like seeing that there was this tension between him and Foggy, and it wasn't over Karen this time, so that was nice. And just generally I really liked this one. I'm definitely going to be continuing on with this series though. Admittedly, I may wait until Echo comes out if Matt turns up in that, or I may reread this one and go through the entire series in time for Daredevil Born Again, which is the new TV show. But overall, I did really like the first two volumes of this. I like where it's put Matt. I do like his relationship with Blind Spot as well, and how he's trying to be a better man and things like this, and trying to sort of be Daredevil and Matt and trying to be the best at both of these things. And I did just generally really like this one, so I'm giving both of them 4 stars. I've just finished She-Hulk. My mind is blown. That was the most incredible episode Marvel have ever put out of any TV show. I am including the Netflix shows in this, all of the previous Disney Plus shows, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Runaways, the lot. This was... I can't believe they just did all of that in half an hour. And I mean, Jen's 4th wall break was the 4th wall break to end all 4th wall breaks. I loved that she broke through Disney Plus and went straight to the writer's room and argued with them, and then went to Feige. Well, Kevin the robot, not Kevin Feige himself. I was half expecting Kevin, I was fully expecting, I wasn't half expecting, I was fully expecting to see Kevin Feige himself. And of course they took the mick out of that as well and made it a robot. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Absolutely 100% genius on that front, especially with Jen rewriting her episode as well. It was exactly like the 1989 She-Hulk comic that I actually DNF'd because it was just too ridiculous, but I love that they took that bit where she's basically fighting the writers and put it in the show. It was genius. I loved that. I loved seeing Matt again, and that Jen basically went, I want to see Matt again, and they did it, which was brilliant. And then they probably did it. Thinking about it, that was probably not my best like use of words there, I don't know, but I loved that. I absolutely just like seeing Matt again and seeing the fact that he missed the entire fight because she like rewrote it. It's brilliant. I love that we saw him again. I love that it looks like they're now dating as well. I love that for him because he deserves that, and Jen deserves a good guy, and Matt is a good guy, so I love that. I hope Jen is now going to, in series 2, set up her own like law practice like she does in the comics. That'd be absolutely fantastic. I'd love to see that. I loved seeing Bruce again, specifically seeing Bruce and his son. Like, they went there, they actually went there. Like, I knew they'd go there, but I didn't think they were gonna go there, you know? Like, I didn't think they were gonna go there straight away. Which means World War Hulk is probably coming, but I don't understand how World War Hulk is gonna happen, because Bruce is angry in World War Hulk and is going against everybody in that storyline because they've exiled him. But Bruce is basically now Smart Hulk, and he is Calm Hulk, I guess you could say. He's at one with everything, nobody's exiled him, so I'm a little bit confused on that one. But the fact they brought in Scar from Planet Hulk, I didn't think the Planet Hulk comic was going to be relevant to this series, but now it is. And I'm just like, I read that ages ago, and now I'm like, it's suddenly relevant. This is incredible. So I love that. I love that we saw Scar. I'm so interested to see where that's going to go, especially now that Bruce is now a dad, Thor's now a dad, Korg's now a dad, you know, there's like, obviously Clint's a dad, so you've now got multiple men at the MCU who are now fathers. So that's going to be so interesting to see going forward, and being like, it's like now going to be a superhero daycare centre, because that would be hilarious. And I would take an entire series just with probably it'd have to be superpowered people trying to basically look after the children of various superpowered people. Like, the most normal ones would be Clint's lot. Like, and they'd be the most well-adjusted and normal of the lot of them, because they don't have powers as far as we know, but at least one of them is a trained archer, so there's that. But like, obviously their parents are SHIELD agents, so they've probably got some level of like fighting ability and all the rest of it. But then you've got like Love, who is an incredibly powerful person, and now you've got Scar, who is literally a Hulk, so is big and green and strong. We don't know about Angry yet, but that's incredible. I don't know how they're going to do that. That's not the point of this one. But the fact that Jen also mentioned series 2 when she was talking to Kevin, I've got to stop saying Feige, Kevin, she was talking to him and mentioned series 2, and then also save it for the movie. So I'm guessing we're going to be getting a Hulk movie at some point as well. And obviously She-Hulk series 2, cannot wait for that. I love Jen so much. I cannot wait to see where like series 2 goes. I hope she turns up as well in Born Again, which is the Daredevil TV series, considering the both of them are now like tied together now, sort of, or at least seem to be dating. So it would be nice to see her in that sort of that crossover and see them both sort of like jumping between each other's shows. That'd be amazing. I'd love to see her with the A-Force and the Avengers and everybody else naturally. And then she also mentioned the X-Men, saying, when are we going to get the X-Men? I'm not going to lie, I screamed at that point. I actually screamed. I screamed out loud. And I have no regrets. It's the X-Men. It was totally going to happen. But I loved how they dealt with all of this. I loved how they dealt with Intelligentsia as well, and how they basically went, yes, this is the incel dude bros who have been moaning since the second She-Hulk was announced, going, oh, it's woke culture and all the rest of it. And instead it's basically like, no, she's here to stay, get lost, essentially. I loved that. I love that Jen's going after them all now as well, and being like, getting her justice. Loved that. I would love to see her more in the courtroom dealing with all of that. I will say I did expect it to be Todd, but at the same time I was kind of hoping it wasn't going to be, because that would have been too obvious. But I completely understand why they did that, so that's fine. Essentially this whole series has been incredible, but that finale was possibly my favourite finale of any Marvel series ever, which is saying something, because there's been some epic finales, but I think that one may be my favourite. because of the references, the cameos. Wong turned up at the end, I should mention as well. That was great seeing him get Blonsky out, so now Blonsky's now going to be in Carmitage. I just want him to meet Steven and see what happens. I want everyone to meet Steven and see what happens. That's just me. But essentially, I love the cameos, I love the references, I loved Jen rewriting her own story. That's so powerful. I loved that. I loved the fourth wall breaks. I loved everything. I loved everything about this. This is... I'm not over it. I'm not over it. I'm gonna need to, like, calm down, but I don't know if I'm physically capable of it at this point, so I'm just gonna have to try and breathe, and I'm going to read some comics. I've got Mariko Tamaki's She-Hulk, which is the final 3 that I need to read, so I'm going to read those, and then I've got to do a blog post on Scar, and then also all of the Easter eggs in the last 3 episodes of this. I'm now reading a one-shot from 2010, and Stan Lee's just turned up. After watching today's episode where we talked to Kevin, this is a very interesting turn of events, to say the least. And also, can we just appreciate this bit down here that says, this story takes place after the last comic you read and just before the next one. I love that little detail. That's a really great detail. I've actually gone and read 2 other one-shots first before I read the Mariko Tamaki stuff, and they were reasonably interesting. The first one was not my favourite. I did like the Stan Lee bit and stuff like that, but the rest of it was quite sexistly drawn, which was not my favourite whatsoever, in terms of, like, She-Hulk's boobs being very, very, very prominent and being very much, like, the main point of the artwork, which was definitely not my favourite. And then also there was like a She-Hulk naked joke at the end as well, which was definitely not fun either, so I'm only going to give that one 2 stars. And then I'm going to give the She-Hulk annual 3 stars because it was interesting. This one we're dealing with like a brain swap type idea, but it was very, very confusing as to just what was going on, who was who, why this was happening, all the rest of it. It just was not my favourite, so like I said, 3 stars. I've now just finished the comic book run, and this was a really interesting one. This is set after Civil War II, after She-Hulk has battled Thanos and has ended up in a coma and is essentially woken up to find that Bruce has been killed by Hawkeye. Admittedly, Bruce did want this. He did ask Hawkeye to do it, so it's not like... It's a complicated one, essentially. It was Civil War II, essentially, and it means that she is now not green anymore. When she turns into the Hulk, when she wants to turn into the Hulk, she is grey and slightly less in control, and also in her human form, she's dealing a lot with PTSD, survivor's guilt, and all of this kind of thing. And this was a really interesting run. I think it was a bit too short, and I think it could have gone on for longer, but I did enjoy the look at PTSD and how Jennifer is dealing with her grief, or not dealing with her grief more likely, how she's also like trying to sort of still be a Hulk and still trying to be good by doing like lawyery stuff, and then learning that she can still be a Hulk in a way and things like this. I also really liked exploring more of her relationship with Patsy, aka Hellcat, who is another hero, and I really like seeing how much like Hellcat was there for her and everything else. That was a really fun thing because we don't usually see that much female friendship and things, so that was really good. And I think this may have actually been one of my favourite ones because this felt more like a character study, and it was just a really good time, and it just felt good to read, to be honest. And that is actually the end of this reading vlog. So I should say that I gave the Mariko Tamaki stuff 4 stars for every volume, and that is where I'm going to wrap this up at last. I apologise right now for how long this vlog is. I know it's long, but I think it's been worth it. I've had a really good time like recording all of this, talking about all of my favourite She-Hulk comics, what I haven't liked about them, what I've loved about them, the actual series, all the rest of it, and I hope you've enjoyed it too. So if you did, please do give me a thumbs up, comment down below, tell me your favourite moment of She-Hulk. I would love to know. Or if there's a Marvel character you'd love to see me vlog about next, please do leave me your suggestions down below if you have that. Or if you don't have that much time, leave me a green emoji down below to let me know that you were here. I'll also leave a link as well down below to all my social media if you want to check it out, including to the Comic Book Sanctum, which is my website dedicated to Marvel Comics, which is filled with everything I've mentioned in She-Hulk and all of those blog posts I have been mentioning throughout the weeks and everything else, all linked down below, so you can check that out if you want to read more about She-Hulk. I'll also leave a link as well down below to my Etsy and Redbubble store, which sells bookish matches if you're interested in that, or if you just want to see any more of my videos, including my Black Panther reading vlog, which is coming up soon. Please click subscribe here, and over here will be the link to my previous video. But until next time everyone, bye!